Welcome to the Jedburgh podcast. I'm the creator and host, Fran Racioppi. Each episode, I speak with transformative leaders, visionaries, drivers of change, and those dedicated to winning no matter the challenge. The Jedburgh podcast is founded in a lineage of the special operations Jedburgh teams of the past and is produced in partnership with Talent War Group, a management consulting and executive search firm focused on helping you optimize the people side of your business. We're sponsored by Jersey Mike's Subs. Together, we share the mission of giving, making a difference in someone's life. Visit the Jedburgh Podcast, Talent War Group, and Jersey Mike's Subs on the web and on all social media. A percentage of all proceeds is dedicated to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation.
At 2 a.m, we're having an all-team meeting in the cockpit in the Southern Ocean, and I'm like, this is bullshit. This is the way it's going to be. If you guys haven't made it, I'm in charge, and we're moving forward, and I don't want to hear any more of this crap. You're going to stand watch when you stand watch. You're going to be off watch when you're off watch, and we're going to get this boat to Australia and hopefully get some new sales.
You said, quote, "The race taught me how to lead, how to trust my own decisions, and how to overcome challenges, many of which threatened our lives." Sailing teaches us how to lead, follow, or get out of the way. There are times for discussion, and there are times to do exactly what you're told, the way you're told to do it, when you're told to do it. Sailing teaches us how to compete and win as individuals and how to be effective members of any team. My guest this episode is Dawn Riley, one of the greatest competitors in professional sailing and a pioneer in the integration of women into the sport. Dawn's the first woman to win an America's Cup, the pinnacle achievement for professional sailing. She was later the team captain of America Cube, the first all-women's America's Cup team. Dawn was the first American, man or woman, to sail in 3 America's Cups and 2 Whitbread Round the World races. She was the US Rolex Yachtswoman of the Year, and she was the former president of the Women's Sports Foundation. To sit down with Dawn, I crossed Long Island Sound on a dead flat day, and I docked my boat in Oyster Bay, New York, right alongside Maiden, the boat Dawn sailed around the world. Dawn and I talked leadership and what sailing teaches us about building great individuals and teams. We spoke about Title IX, women in sailing, the evolution of the sport, and what it was like to win the America's Cup as the only female. Finally, we talked about what it was like to answer the call, take the helm, and lead an all-women's team around the world in the ocean race. Dawn's a no-nonsense inspirational leader who'll stop at nothing to cross the finish line first. Today, she's the executive director of Oakcliff Sailing. Her mission? Build American leaders through sailing, put U.S. sailing back on the medal stand, and return the cup home to America. Take a listen and check out Dawn and I touring Oakcliff Sailing, and I see firsthand what it's like to live aboard an ocean racer. Learn more at jedburghpodcast.com. Follow us on all social media at Jedburgh Podcast, and don't miss our full video versions of all our conversations on YouTube. Find out more about Dawn at dawnriley.com, oakcliffsailing.org, and at Oakcliff Sailing on social media. And check out her book, Taking the Helm, to hear more about her story. Dawn, welcome to the Jedburgh Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks so much for hosting here at Oakcliff Sailing in Oyster Bay. I made the trek this morning from Connecticut on the boat, right? It was only fitting. I told Jenny, our production coordinator, the only way I'm doing this episode is, and when we talked in December, I was looking back through my notes from our conversation, and I was looking back to figure out when it was we kind of laid this all out. And I said to myself in December, I distinctly remember, I'm not doing this episode unless I can come over here on the boat and set the whole thing up. And so awesome day, flat water, took me like 20 minutes to get here.
Awesome day, flat water for a motorboat.
Yes.
And then the cocktail breeze will come in and you'll be able to go home downwind with some wind.
Yes, you need the wind.
Yes.
I did not need the wind to get over here. Mm-hmm. I am so honored, though, that you would take the time to sit down with me. As you know, and as a lot of the listeners who hear me on many of the podcasts talk about, boats are a big part of my life. I've grew up sailing. The first pictures that I have with my dad and with my family are me on we had a 37-foot Endeavor at that. And it was like, I don't even think they make those anymore.
No, they don't.
But it was like a bathtub with a sail. And it's been a huge part of my life in having my own children and bringing them up on boats. Mm-hmm. And, my son now just turned 2, and every weekend he's like, I'm driving. And it's like, no, you're not driving yet, but one day. And my daughter this weekend, we went to Newport for the weekend, and it was awesome because she was driving, and she's 12. And it's like the first time where it's like, hey, I'm confident. Like, this kid knows what's going on. But your impact on sailing, on boating is absolutely profound. Not only in terms of what you've done for our generation, but the younger generation that's up and coming. And a few things that stand out, and I know I won't hit them all, but first woman ever to manage the entire America's Cup syndicate, team captain of America Cubed, the all-women's team entry into the America's Cup, pit person on the 92 America's Cup winning team, the first American man or woman to sail 3 America's Cup and 2 Whitbread Round the World races. You've won at every level. Multiple-time world champion, US Rolex Yachtswoman of the Year, board member and president of the Women's Sports Foundation, which I want to ask you about too. And now you serve as the executive director of Oakcliff Sailing, where you are building America's leaders through sailing. This is a dream to sit here with you. I know we've met and I've been talking on and off for several years, and you invited me here to speak to one of the development camps in 2017, and truly an honor for me. But now it's my turn.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, Oakcliff has grown in the past 12 years to something that's unlike it anywhere else in the world, with athletes coming through the doors and experiencing all different levels of the sport of sailing. That history that you just read off kind of was the background and the building block so that I could create Oakcliff. And I did it accidentally, which is the best way.
Well, that's a really interesting point. And actually, I was going to go to Oakcliff later, but actually let's go there now because I think it's really important to set the scene. 2010, the Lawrence family, Hunt Lawrence, came up with this vision for Oakcliff that they would create, that there was something wrong, there was a challenge, right? And the greatest things, I say all the time, the greatest inventions, the greatest things that are made in mankind solve a problem. And the problem that they saw was a problem in US sailing, and you were one of their first calls, and they wanted to bring you in and figure out what problem do you see and how will you solve it. Can you talk about that call you got from them, what their idea was, and what you thought you could bring to the world of sailing?
Well, their idea was basically we have too many boats and we're not sure what to do with them. And then
also a good problem.
And at that point they had 36. Now we have 100. So I'm not positive that I've solved that problem.
You got them more boats.
Exactly. But what was happening is they were being very supportive of a lot of people with quite a few boats, but they didn't have a mission or a direction or organization. So I came in just as a business consultant and with a background in sailing, obviously, and did a SWOT analysis of what was happening in the United States from the amateur level to the pro level, and came up with a few business plan options, and they chose this one. And then I was going to go continue my merry way, sailing super yachts in fun places like Saint-Tropez. And they said, no, you have to come and run this. So I've been here since 2010. And as you mentioned, we're building American leaders through sailing, which until we came up with that, alliteration of what it is that we're doing, we were a little bit jumbled up. Because we have high performance, we have offshore, we have match racing, we have business side, we have motivational side, we have special events, we have a bunkhouse, we've added a high school. But the thing that ties it together is we're trying to build good humans going forward. If they become professional sailors and do the America's Cup, great. If they never sail another day because they've explored it and decided that's not for me, that's great too.
The number one special operations force truth, principle, core value. People are more important than hardware. I talk about these 5 components of a performance mindset, and at the center is character, because people matter more than anything else. I mean, we've built this entire podcast on talking about the importance of people, what leadership does to organizations. We can we can build the greatest boat.
Right.
But
if you sail it like crap, and because you're not a team and everybody's just working on their own little area, you're going to lose.
Talk to me about the development camp side of Oakcliff. So we went through your background, and we're going to circle back and talk a little bit about some of the leadership lessons you learned in various roles that you held. But as you look to develop what you've called Acorns, Saplings, and Mighty Oaks, and you can define those for me too, tell me what sailing teaches you about leadership.
Okay, so the progression is, because we're Oakcliff Sailing, which meant nothing because it was just a word. It's like Nike. Doesn't mean shoes. It does now. So Oakcliff is on land, on the sea. It's a cliff near the sea. And then somebody said, what are you going to call the trainees? And somebody said Acorns. It was a joke. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. Acorns. Then they progress. They stay longer, more than a few weeks. And they become Saplings. And when they graduate, they go on and be Mighty Oaks. and what we're seeing is a lot of the young people that come in, especially in the Acorn program, are still, very fresh. They're 15, 16, 17. They're very individual. They've just been hatched. They think the world, they've just invented it and discovered it. So they're just these little ripe pods.
I still feel like that sometimes.
These little things that they are awesome and wonderful and curious, but we have to help lead them to making some smarter decisions than they may make left to their own devices. So in terms of putting them on a boat where they are in charge, we have a team right now doing the Mackinac race where the skipper and the coach was a high school student here for last year. He was part of the Oakcliff High School, and now he has a FAR 400. They're going to do the Mackinac races. I might pop in and check on him, but it's he's learning the lessons the hard way. I told you to do this, you do it. If you come back and I have to save your butt, I will do that, but you're going to hear about it. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of fear as well.
There's a part of boating, a little bit like flying, mm-hmm. right? Where it teaches you, and it's one of those great sports that teaches you how to be in charge. So how to lead, how mm-hmm. to follow, and when sometimes you need to shut up and get out of the way.
Exactly.
Talk about that in terms of why that's so important and how sailing actually reinforces that. And I'll put it in context too for listeners that this weekend I was with my daughter. And so we're coming in to anchor the boat to go swimming. And I said, okay, take the helm. I'm going to drop the anchor. So we go put it in neutral. I go up and I say, all right, one click reverse. And she's like, why? I don't get it. And I'm like, and now meanwhile, right, we're drifting and I'm looking at the boats behind and I'm like, just do it. Like my wife's yelling at her. But why are these things so important and so reinforcing to teach young people or all of us, right, about when you need to be in charge, when you need to just follow everybody, do what you're told, and when you need to understand that you don't know what you're doing and you have to get out of the way.
Right. So just using the mechanics of sailing. In normal, making a boat go fast, you're in the zone, you're working, everything's fine. There's all these micro communication loops. There's the helmsman who's talking to the trimmers. The trimmers are telling them what they feel. The mainsail trimmer is telling you what your boat speed is. The helm person is saying, I'm going to go down a little bit. That feels good. You have that communication loop. The front of the boat's going, okay, we're getting closer to the mark. We're going to have to get a spinnaker. We better make sure the back of the boat is off there in Fantasyland is understanding what's going on. We're going to be ahead of it.
It's way more comfortable back there.
We're going to be ahead of it. So when they say get the A2, we're going to duh, we've already got the A2. We know exactly where it is, so we can get on there. The back of the boat, the way back of the boat is looking long term, trying to figure out what the next wind shift is. Is that a storm on the horizon? So that's just like the smooth communication loop and everything's going along. But when the shit hits the fan, you need to have one-way communication. And we'll say, just pretend that there's a ship and we have to tack. The helmsperson, one time, tacking, and everybody needs to react. The only way that you can get back is if it's an emergency, which would be like override, cannot tack, need a knife. And that's the time you cut the sheets. But that has to happen. The word why is not during a race. It doesn't happen. As a matter of fact, it's funny you mentioned that. I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, and then my band instructor in high school was an ex-Marine drill sergeant. And I came home one day, I told my mom, I don't think I want to go to the military academy because I like the word why way too much.
Oh, yeah. That is another great place where it teaches you don't need to ask a whole lot of questions
Exactly.
sometimes.
But you do need to have the opportunity to come back with critical, quick information, or you're going to run into a tanker. Most of the time it's not that dramatic. It's because we're going to lose a half a boat length on attack. Right. So it's funny. We use that pressure and that critical life and death adrenaline to do a simple thing like win a sailboat race. But to us, it feels like that. And that's where you have that just lessons because you race over and over and over. So you're learning that. There's no, I didn't like your tone of voice. I don't freaking care.
Yeah, that's what my daughter got into when she started crying after my wife yelled at her. It's like, you just need to sometimes do what you're told.
Just do it. And that's funny when you talk about that because the women's team, so I was the only woman on the men's team, and I had sailed most of my life until Maiden. the first Round the World with all women, I'd sailed almost always with men, maybe a couple of women occasionally. And then all of a sudden in 1995, I'm the team captain of a women's team, and the debriefs were completely different. Not to mention that we had people that were rowers and bodybuilders, and then we had people that only sailed dinghies by themselves. They'd never been part of a team. Maybe they didn't do a lot of other team sports because, Title IX was way back in the 70s, but it's still progressing up. And we're having debriefs, and people are like crying. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I went to our video editor and I had him in the middle, because we had a professional video guy that would cut the the training videos, which was amazing. And I had him edit that part for Tom Hanks in League of Their Own. Are you crying?
Oh, yeah.
There's no crying in baseball. And he put it in like 6 times, and then everybody started laughing, and we got over the crying. Thank God.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling my daughter. I told her that last week. I'm going to video you. I'm going to video you, and I'm going to show you exactly what you look like so that you understand what I'm looking at.
Show her the movie first.
Oh,
show her
yeah, that's
League
a good
of Their
idea.
Own first.
That's a good idea. Well, let's talk about America Cubed. Let's talk about 92 and 95. Mm-hmm. You were, as you said, you were on the men's team in the 92 Cup. The boat won the Cup.
Yep.
Talk to me about what it was like to be the only woman in a male-dominated sport.
Well, I always had been, so for me it was normal, just to start with. The only things that were super, like, upsetting in a weird way was that I was tired of wearing men's clothing, and it all came to a head because it just doesn't fit as well. It's not a vanity thing, but the vanity got in when we had the America's Cup ball, and we were sponsored by Ralph Lauren, and they gave me the khaki pants and the blue blazer and the white button down, to wear to the America's Cup ball, where all of my friends that were female would be in like ball gowns, and I went to the marketing people, and I'm like, I'm so disappointed, and of course to them they're like, oh well, let's just call Ralph up. We'll get you something. And I didn't get a gown, but I got these really cool palazzo pants and a women's blue blazer, and they fit me at the La Jolla store. So I was like, okay, now I got a little bit of girl going on. So it's those weird things you don't expect. But being on the boat and being just part of the team, you're a team member. And I'm sure it's much like the military. Once women when you're in the field and you're in the fight, in the battle, taking the spinnaker down or something more life and death, you're just happy to have another competent person next to you, and you don't notice that it's male or female. You're just like, let's get this shit done.
Yeah. What'd they see in you?
I don't know. With hindsight, you have a little more time to think about it. And of course, I'm being inducted to Hall of Fames and all sorts of crazy stuff, which I think I'm way too young for. They told me I was too young, and then somebody said I wasn't, and now I kind of agree. Maybe I was, whatever. I think I would just hit the sweet spot between being competent, determined, not fazed by a bunch of BS, able to handle it, give as good as I took. And I love the sport of sailing. So some of that had to come through. And in the America's Cup, it's the purest, especially back then. It's changed now with the technology. The technology was important then, but you still had a lot of sailors and a lot of human interaction. Now it's much more human, to the computer, to the hydraulics, to the electronics, it's more like flight than pushing buttons. And there's probably more mental forethought for split-second decisions, more like a fighter pilot than a ship's captain. But the purity of being able to say, we want to change a bulb, or what happens if we do this, or how does the wind or which is liquid, or the sea flow over this foil, is just so cool.
You said, and you have referred to yourself as a female obsessed with sailing in the 70s, when you grew up on one hand with people telling you that you couldn't do it, and on the other hand, you had people saying that you could do it. So some were saying you could do it, and some were saying you could not do it, right? Yeah. And you did mention Title IX. It's been 50 years, so June 23rd, I think.
And then what did they do the day after Title IX?
Yeah, I know everything.
Roe v. Wade. Furious. I couldn't even post on Facebook celebrating Title IX because I was so horrified.
Yeah, a lot of people were very upset about the correlation there.
We need to fix that.
So these are two contrary perspectives. You'd been sailing since you were 13. Mm-hmm. Why did you get involved with the sport in the first place?
It was pretty simple. I sailed since I was born. My dad yelled at me, and I don't remember crying. I'm sure I did. When we were bored, he would make us do a spinnaker change or something, or jibe a wooden spinnaker pole. When I was 13, we sailed from the Great Lakes out to the Hudson River, out the Barge Canal, Hudson River to here, New York, up to Maine, down to Florida, the Bahamas, the Virgins, Grenada, and back. So we had a lot of experience, and I was the oldest. So when he would go and go racing before that, and, my mom would say, "Can you please take one of the children?" I was the one that got to go. So I'd done some racing. We had that experience of being in charge of the boat on our own when we were on watch, and the being able to explore and the freedom and the, amazing things. And then I came back. When we came back, there was a party at the yacht club, which we didn't belong to because we weren't yacht clubby. We just had a boat, and there was somebody said, "Do you want to go racing?" And I've told this story a million times, but I was 13. I was a girl. I went out on the Etchels with some really old people that in hindsight were 25, 30, I don't know. And I was like, wow, they suck. I'm good at this. Mm-hmm. So I had the skills and the confidence, and that propelled me to explode. I also had seen the America's Cup in Newport, Rhode Island, and seen Ted Turner and ESPN and Gary Jobson. I didn't know their names at the time. I just knew that there was some excitement and glamour, and the 12 meters looked amazing. And, it was like this whole town that just went sailing. And so I became obsessed in that year. And you mentioned your daughter's 12, right? That is such a critical time. And
might send her over to you.
do. So the middle school age is so important for young people. It's the time that they discover that they have a future, but hopefully they haven't discovered all of the limitations that may be set on them for their race or gender or socioeconomic situation. Mm-hmm. So it's in time of enlightenment, and it makes a difference. More so than super young, more so than high school. It's the time where their lives are changed forever, hopefully in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're pushing now to. She's involved in lacrosse, and now she's. We're trying to get her to go to maybe a tennis camp this summer because she's like, they're like that, but then they also get fixated on one thing, and they're like, I can only do one thing. It's like, no, you can do a few things.
No, that's actually somebody told me, he goes, "You're good, but you're always focused on the next thing." I'm like, I have to be. I'm a female in this sport. I need to have my next plan. I can't just sit back and wait for the phone to ring. But I also talk to high school kids and middle school kids. I say, keep trying stuff. The whole America True, which is my third America's Cup, and the True Youth program was to dream it, do it. And we took kids from really varied backgrounds, specifically at risk, first-time offenders, boys and girls clubs, inner city groups, and said, come sailing. And we never said, we want you to do an America's Cup. We said, you could sail around the world. You could travel to Russia and play chess. You could invent a new sneaker. So it was just keep trying things. And then when I get to the older kids, I'm like, this is the deal. Tell your parents you can do 10 different things. If you hit one, you win.
Yeah.
Just keep trying it. Yeah, you don't, unless you're just positive that you have that one goal, there's nothing wrong with that. If you know that inside and out, still have a couple of plan Bs and plan Xs, just in case. That
never goes away. I tell my wife that all the time. She's like, why are you involved in all these things? It's like, because if you have to have multiple things going on, and if you have one that works, it can be life-changing. Yep. If they all work, that's really yeah. Now we got some real decisions to make. You mentioned the third America's Cup. Go back to the second America's Cup first in 1995. So the decision was made to create an all-female crew. Why was that decision made?
According to Bill Koch, who was the funder for the first one and the skipper with Buddy Melgis, he wanted to do what we won. So when you win the America's Cup, it's like you won the 100-yard dash and you get the Olympics. Surprise, you got to organize it.
You get to make all the decisions.
So we won the America's Cup in 92, and then he had the power to to make it all happen. And he didn't necessarily want to do it himself. His business didn't want him to do it. I don't know about his family. It's a pretty intense thing, and he had a corporation to run.
I mean, that's all you're doing for 3 years. Is planning that thing.
Living, breathing, from 5:45 workouts till you're fall in bed at 10, 11 at night. We averaged less than 2.5 days off a month for that
really?
time. So it's pretty intense. So he decided to come up with an all women's team, and he actually contacted me, and I wrote we called it the manifesto, but it was a business plan. And kind of took it from there.
How'd you go about selecting the team?
So I wrote the manifesto, and then there's some other people that came in, because as soon as there's a thing, right, people are coming in and they were all guys, and they're coming in. One had a wife who was a sailor. Like, I'm going to come in, and my wife's going to be the skipper, and somebody else.
I'm thinking about Wind, by the way, the movie Wind with Matthew Modine.
Yeah.
In the hangar.
Yep. So there's a whole bunch of politics going on. And I was told by the person that was hired to select the team that I would never be in the back of the boat because there's all these dinghy sailors. What the idiot didn't understand is I was the only individual who was going to be on the boat who had ever sailed an America's Cup boat. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was pissed off. So when I got a call to go around the world again, I was like, okay, I'll go around the world. And then they announced the team while I was around Cape Horn. They had a telephone sitting on the desk at the New York Peninsula Hotel or something, expecting me to call in. We got miscommunication, time zones, doesn't matter. And so I kind of was grandfathered into the team. But I had an option. I didn't sign a contract yet. So I had an option for another team, and I chose the women's team. The other team was a better deal financially. It was a guaranteed A-team spot. There was all sorts of perks, and they're trying hard. It was like, somebody wants me that much, they're going to throw money at me. But I used it to negotiate my contract a little bit up. And the biggest thing is I realized that the women's team was going to be so impactful to society that I should be a part of it. Mm-hmm. So that's
people still talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, the boat's on display in Bristol.
Yeah.
At the Harris
I actually signed my contract on my 30th birthday, and then I may not have been so fresh the next morning.
So you go through that America's Cup, and the results weren't as where you wanted them to be.
Well,
they weren't 92. You didn't win.
We didn't win.
You didn't win.
Yeah. We would never have won because the Kiwis were so fast. Mm-hmm. But if there hadn't been a backroom deal made by all the guys in charge of our team, we would have gone to the finals. Mm-hmm. Instead, there was a 3-boat final, and then Dennis Conner eliminated us with a stroke of luck. He tacked or jibed around the top mark, went to shore. We were 6.5 minutes ahead of him at the last mark, and he got a puff off on the shore by Point La Jolla, and came in, and we finished overlapped, and he was just nosed us out to eliminate us. Otherwise, we had already eliminated him, but there was a backroom deal that allowed him back in. So we almost eliminated him a second time, and he came back and got us.
What's it like to, again, you think about in the movie Wind when they lose, and, the owner of the team, who was the skipper, goes, mentally goes crazy and stuff. What is it like at that level? Because you referenced it and you said, this is 3 years of preparation, and this is one of the premier. A lot of people don't know a lot about sailboat racing, and I would encourage anyone who doesn't know to go watch these things. I'm going to ask you about sailboat design in a minute and where we've come, but I mean, it really is one of the premier athletic events in history, and it's been going on for so long. What's it like? One to compete, and two to win and lose.
But the losing part, let's just go on that, because it's going to sound corny, but everything I've done in my life, I truly enjoy the process. I love the quest, the being curious, the physical, the endurance, the blood, sweat, and tears. And I don't remember this, but just recently somebody who was on the team, who's one of the younger people, said, like, when we lost, there were a lot of tears. Not mine. I was just like, You know, like you see a professional
Yeah.
player when they lose, they're like, damn it. And they're angry, but they're not a puddle of jello, right? And a lot of the women were. And one of the youngest women on the team referenced this just recently. She said, you told us, you guys, it's a sailboat race. There will be another one. What I didn't realize until she brought that up is that for me, that was my 4th campaign. I'd already done an America's Cup and 2 Round the Worlds. This is the 4th one, and I fully expected to do more. So I had the perspective where the babies on the team or the puppies on the team that was like their world had ended. And so you have to have that perspective and knowing that, okay, let's just do another one. And as a matter of fact, right around that time, I was already planning my America True campaign. So.
Well, let's talk about America True, because that was your 3rd America's Cup entry.
The best one.
And we talk on the podcast. I talk with companies and organizations I work with. We talk about selecting the right person. It's come up a lot when we talk about diversity, equality, DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have these DEI campaigns, and so many times we've put this face on there, right? That you've got to be of a different color, you have to be of a different religion. But really, at the end of the day, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get diversity of thought, right? Diversity of thought is what matters, because I can take an Asian person and a black person and a white person, and if they all went to Harvard, we're not really, do we really have diversity of thought in this room? Maybe a little bit, I argue not as much as we were probably truly looking for. But you built this America True campaign solely focused on give me the best people.
The best person for the job. And with a proactive conversation, continuing conversation, are we making this decision equally with equity in mind? We didn't even use the word equity then. We're like, are we saying no because she's a female, or are we saying yes because he's a guy? And then we would have that conversation and go, wait a minute, no, I think no, this is real. So it's funny, just from a strict business sense, part of the reason that Bill Koch didn't do another campaign and did the women's team is because it's very simple. Winning the America's Cup is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And if you have a team...
Yeah, we've only done it once since 1992.
Yeah, you're looking at it and you're focusing so hard. Well, Larry Ellison did, but you're focusing so hard on doing everything perfect and using every ounce of energy, brain power, expertise of every individual on the team. Therefore, if you try to do it a second time, you will not be as good, because somebody else will be able to see what you've done. They will put a different spin on it, a diverse spin, and they're going to come back and be faster and better than you. So that same goes forward, that having a diverse team, a diverse thought, diverse background will make your company stronger. The bottom line will be better. And from a male-female perspective, which has been most integrated already and has been studied, if you have a corporation with more than 3 women on the board, you are statistically more profitable. Bottom line. So anybody who says, oh, that's just window dressing, if they're a smart, savvy investor, they're putting their money there. So whatever they want to say politically, this is a fact. Diverse of thought, diverse of background, having different ways, having a little bit like character in there, and some disruptive people to, not like crazy, but somebody that does ask why.
Yeah,
when you
challenge the status quo.
When you have the time, you need that person to say, well, why don't we do this? And you're all like, no. Oh, this time they're not so. This time, let's talk that through. Yeah. So with America True, we wanted to be diverse, and this I'm going to circle all the way forward to Oakcliff right now. We wanted to be diverse, and there wasn't a diverse pool in terms of race and background. We did have gender. We had 26% women in every department, and that makes that we had at least 25, 26, and we had men in every department. So it was both ways. And then we said, instead of just saying, oh, can't do it, there's nobody there that's qualified, sorry, we said, well, let's change the world. And we started True Use. We go into communities. That's what I was talking about. We go into communities, and we would expose kids to sailing. Talk about what do you want to do with your life? Where do you want to go? What do you want to try? And through that message with True Youth, we started helping community sailing centers set up all around the country. And yacht clubs started inviting people into their junior sailing programs. So we really blew the doors off of the yacht clubs, which was literally in our business plan, blow doors off yacht clubs.
That was a phrase?
That was a phrase.
I'm putting that in a business plan. That's awesome.
So we now are seeing the fruits of that. And that was in 2000. Now in 2022, it's 2021 really, we rolled the America True Foundation $170,000 into Oakcliff for scholarships specifically for those kids that have gone through community sailing programs. And that doesn't, and it's need-based, of course, but that doesn't mean that they're absolutely, poor kids. It just means that they don't have the network that the same exact child, if they had been exposed and entered into a yacht club, would have a different network. So we're looking to help expand that network, bring them in. This is a job skills training site. It might be sailing, it might be engines, it might be sail making, it might be business, accounting, PR, marketing. But we are a educational institution here that is giving real life apprenticeship like programs. So now we have that in 1995 when we started saying we don't have enough diversity. What are we going to do about it? Let's do this. And now we're seeing the other end of it, which is so rewarding. And we have diversity in all of our programs, significant diversity, which is amazing.
Well, we talk about hire for character, train for skill, right? If you bring somebody in who demonstrates the character traits that you want and you need, you can figure out what they want to do skill-wise, put the program together, train them up. They're far superior to someone who might be technically proficient, but lacks values, morals, and, the intestinal courage to want to work hard.
That last part, the morals and the courage and the drive and the ethics, that you need to have skills or success. Or if you're skilled and you don't care and you treat people like crap, I don't even want to know you. And you certainly shouldn't be walking through Oakcliff doors. And we will bounce a few people every once in a while. And it's always for that. It's never because they just keep falling off the boat or something. That we'll put a life jacket on them. We'll get them better.
I want to ask about the Whitbread Ocean Race. Because it's now the Volvo Ocean
now
Race.
It's the Ocean Race. It was the Whitbread, then it was the Whitbread Round the World race for the Heineken Trophy, then it was the Volvo Ocean Race, and now it's just the Ocean Race.
The Ocean Race. Okay, so we're going to ask about the Ocean Race. Yes. Whatever the Ocean Race is called, I don't want to do it. I can tell you that. You've done it multiple times. I have zero desire. You wrote a book about it called Taking the Helm. You and I were talking about it earlier. And it recaps the 1993 Round the World race, in which you had gotten the call when they were in Uruguay to, will you come down? Will you take charge of what's going on here? The previous skipper had stepped down. There's a book.
She hadn't stepped down. There'd been a mutiny.
Okay. All right. So there was a problem. So tomorrow is fitting. This is fitting, okay, because tomorrow, and the episode will release right after yours, we're interviewing a Harvard professor named Eric McNulty. He wrote a book called You're It. And he is one of the world's foremost experts. He advises FEMA, the White House, one of the world's foremost experts in crisis leadership. And their book is called You're It, solely because when you are a leader of an organization, you cannot predict when the chaos and when the crisis is going to happen. But at some point, someone's going to look at you and go, you're it. What are you going to do? So my question to you is, now preempting this conversation I'm going to have with the professor tomorrow, what'd you do when you were it?
I got the call when I was in Michigan, and that was when the America's Cup was on pause, and I was being told that I was never going to be in the back of the boat. But I got the call on a Sunday. I was at my mom's house in Michigan, and I had to quickly go buy some long underwear and some gear and fly to Uruguay on Wednesday. So it was Sunday to Wednesday, and again, I've made this joke, but it's true. When you're in Michigan in October and you need long underwear, the hunting stores all sell camouflage. So I had orange camouflage long underwear going into the Southern Ocean, which was
well, if you fell off the boat, they'd find you.
They'd definitely find me. So yeah, I showed up and I made some phone calls back then. That was way before cell phones, and it was like called people's mothers to find out where they are. They're at a dinner party. Oh, there's 2 people that can go with me there. My best friend Renee. I was like, Renee, remember how you said you wanted to race around the world? Pack your bags. We're going Wednesday. She's like, what? So she went down with us. So I pulled in some other people. I got down there. I did make a mistake textbook wise, but I didn't have a lot of choice. Peter Blake, who was amazing and mentor, friend, raced around the world the time before he won every single leg. Just amazing leader. He said you need to fire everybody and then interview them and rehire. Mm-hmm. I was just trying to figure out what their names were because I only had, by the time I got there Wednesday, we started Saturday. So I didn't have that option. I made a critical mistake in that I should have made a different person the navigator and should have gotten rid of one person and gone shorthanded. But, with that type of decision. So I just made the decision. We went into the Southern Ocean and realized the level of skill that I was dealing with, but got through it. They tried to have a bit of a mutiny again. And so at 2 a.m, we're having an all-team meeting in the cockpit in the Southern Ocean. And I'm like, this is bullshit. This is the way it's going to be. If you guys haven't made it, I'm in charge and we're moving forward. And I don't want to hear any more of this crap. You're going to stand watch when you stand watch. You're going to be off watch when you're off watch. And we're going to get this boat to Australia and hopefully get some new sails.
You said, quote, the race taught me how to lead, how to trust my own decisions, and how to overcome challenges, many of which threatened our lives, unquote. And then you went on to talk about this great adventure, and it was this crash course in what leadership is. What were those things that were life threatening? I mean, I can imagine the seas.
Well, if you don't know what you're doing on the boat, you shouldn't be steering because you're going to do it crash jibe. And that was one of the things. That's the only time it was pretty dangerous. I came on deck because I didn't trust the team. So
you've been with them 2.5 days.
Exactly, for very justified reasons. And I was in the nav station. I put on my boots and to come on deck and my harness that was built into my foul weather gear jacket, but I didn't have pants on because we were going downwind and they had jibed, and then I ended up being washed off the back of the boat. I was still clipped in, so got back on, but the cold shock and the hypothermia, I ended up in my bunk for probably 16 hours warming up,
wow.
which was not good for the overall team. So if you could do it again, I would have taken 2 more minutes and said, I'm just one person. I need to preserve myself before I go in and try to preserve the boat and the rest of the team. So that would have saved 16 hours, but still it was not a comfortable thing. We ended up making one crew change. It wasn't the correct crew change, but one crew change in there and just kept moving forward. Now, the funny thing is I didn't realize till I retyped the book just double checked it to put it in paperback that we got to Australia. We got new sails. I did a media tour. I came back and we were 3rd on the next leg. I had completely forgotten that because of all the drama of the race. I'd written about it in the book, and I didn't remember we had done so well.
You achieved the mission.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But then there's a few rudder breakages after that. But so Heineken was the first time that I was literally solely in charge and didn't have my team that I had built around me. I had a few people I trusted, which is not the way that you want to go into battle, ever.
Let's talk about your leadership style because you just opened it up. I absolutely love talking to coaches. I have in this podcast, we've had a number of them on, including Andy Towers, one of the most famous lacrosse players, and now the head coach of the Chaos has come on a couple of times, and they won last year. And actually, I just saw him the other day because they were 0-4, I think, last year. And they ended up winning the championship, and I saw him, and he's like, oh, man, we're 0-4. I'm like, you were 0-4 last year. We did one podcast before the playoffs. You were and you just made the playoffs barely, and we did another one a few weeks later. You were holding the championship trophy.
That's the best.
So
You're still improving all the way to the end, and you peak at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was what was so impressive about him. But I was looking, and I was like, "What's the problem? Just do it again."
Yeah, it's easy.
Right? I just got to watch it on TV.
Yeah.
Go do it. But people have said that your coaching style is rough. But we talked about here, you can't be meek or soft in sailing, and that it's also been said that you teach from what I call effective intelligence. And so effective intelligence, one of the 9 special operations forces characteristic traits that SOF uses to assess talent in their recruitment and selection process. Effective intelligence is the ability to take your experiences of the past that you've learned from and apply them to the future. And that has been defined as your style. It's also been said that you will never ask anyone to work harder than you do.
No.
And there's also, and I know just from knowing you, that you know every job in this sport. You're always willing to get your hands dirty.
Oh yeah. We were up on a boat earlier this year, and just working dirty, and I was like, I just want to be a boat captain. It's so less stress just to fix stuff. I don't mind getting dirty at all. But I also would be completely frustrated if I was just doing one part of a program. I don't mind sanding the bottoms. I don't mind fairing a bulb. I enjoy it. I can feel it and see what it's going to do. But if I was doing that while other people were making poor decisions, I would lose my mind. But yeah, I think somebody asked me a few days ago, they said, what is something that people don't know about you? I'm like, that inside I really care, but I don't necessarily have the time or the patience to say, oh, I care about you. Now get that done. I just jumped to the let's go.
Well, how do you balance that? Right? How do you balance this authoritative nature that's required to run this program, compete at the highest levels of this sport, but also be friendly and empathetic and be somebody that everybody's going to latch onto and look to and say, yeah, I'm comfortable going to talk to her?
Yeah, they're not always comfortable in every day, but that's part of what has to happen. I think humor is the biggest thing, and not necessarily self-depreciating humor, because then it's insincere, but just like, okay, this happened. It's our 9:00 meeting every day digresses into story hour, because somebody will say something, I'll go, oh, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but one time, and I'll just go off on a story, that is wouldn't be written in a script, but it's real and it's fun, and people learn from them. They always have a mission or a message, and make them understand that while I'm telling them to do this, yeah, I've had a fair amount of screw ups as well. The one thing I always talk about, though, we had this conversation with somebody. I've considered running for politics, and currently I'm trying to figure out how I can split myself in two. And when I went to Emily's List and they started doing Oppo research, and they said, well, you're a sailor. And I said, yeah, but everything I've done, I'm proud of. So if I can get the people here to understand everything that you do is going to be known and you should be proud of it, if you can keep that in mind, you're going to make better decisions. They're not always going to be perfect. And also, as long as you've actually taken the time to think through the process and you've made a decision and that's where you ended up, that's okay. Even if there could have been a better decision, you have to be active in it. If you just sit back and go along with the group and run a Jeep off the road, well, that's on you, dumbass.
Well, that's one of the core
Am I allowed
principles.
to swear in here?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's one of the core principles of leadership, though. I mean, I was just speaking with one of the coaches that I work with yesterday about this, where we're embarking on some different tactics going into a new season and really starting to up the standard and really reinforce accountability. And often when you do those things, there's resistance. And the question I asked is, do you believe that every decision you're making with respect to this is the right decision based on the totality of your multiple Olympic medals, and your decades of coaching, is this the right decision for the team? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes,
It should be a simple yes.
drive on.
Yeah. Yes, not yes, but. Like, try to get that word out. Yes, but. No. Yes or no.
What do you want to run for in politics?
Freaking president. Supreme Court. I don't know. I wanted to run for Senate in Michigan. That ship's probably sailed. So right now, I need to be vocal and active. I don't have enough money to influence any election. I donate as much as I can to a few select candidates that people that are in power that I worked with on Hillary's campaign. But I want to be proud to be an American. I want to be emotional when, Star Spangled Banner goes. And I'm horrified, especially when I see it through the eyes of all my friends from other countries. That's a difference that a lot of people don't have, that luxury of being a citizen of the world and seeing what we are, knowing what we represent and seeing what we're reflecting.
Yeah, we are at a critical time, I think, in this country, and I think that we need the next. I've talked about it on other episodes. We need the next generation of leaders to come in. I think that we're spoiled. I think anyone between the ages of 40 and 60 is super spoiled. Our grandparents were the greatest generation, and they saved the world.
They saved the world and worked their butts off and were satisfied. When you think about it, most people and I'm from Detroit, and some of the most satisfied, happiest people, when I was growing up, were not like the rich people on the hill. They were the solid Americans that worked hard, that literally had Budweisers and a barbecue with their friends in the backyard every Friday night. It was regular, but it was family. It was this huge family.
Yeah, it's well, and I think that's like trickled down, because they had, their kids were the baby boomers, and and we fell on the back of them, and now we still sit here and we say, well, our problems, by and large, life's been good, and these generations solved all of our problems, and now, those generations are gone, and the generation of the baby boomers has been now in control of senior political positions for 30, 40 years, and what we're having is, I think we're experiencing a void in leadership right now, because the generation that we sit in has not stood up and said, somebody has to do this, and we're the ones who have enough life experiences to be able to make the right decisions.
So they should be political coaches as opposed to political candidates.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, we'll follow you on this and see what happens. Who's a mentor?
A lot of people ask me, my mentors are eclectic, and like there was a guy, Tim Woodhouse, who's no longer with us, that was completely inappropriate to be the mentor of a 16-year-old girl. I mean, there is nothing and anybody that knew him would say the same thing, but he gave me some chances, and he pushed me and treated me. He was the first one that gave me a job to fly out here to Manhasset to trim a sail. There were other people that I worked for that taught me lessons nothing to do with sailing. There were, Billie Jean King is a mentor to so many people, and I don't want to throw her name around, but she's a friend to so many. And I saw Julie Foudy, who's also a friend. She was the president before me of the Women's Sports Foundation, and it was like in an airport, so it was the subtitles, and she was recanting a story that when there was the soccer, and they wanted to have equal pay, they came to Billie, and Billie said, "No, Julie, what are you doing about it?" Which I didn't really remember that story, but that's exactly what I said to the women from SCA, a Volvo all-women's team. They called me. They wanted to start the Magenta Project because their uniforms were magenta. They weren't pink. They were magenta. And they wanted to start the Magenta Project. They wanted me to be the CEO. I'm like, no, I've done this. I've shown you how. It's time for you to step up. So that's back what we need to get with the politicians, as opposed to come help me be greater. No, it's your turn. I will support you. I'll be on your advisory board. I will, give you my advice. Even with Oakcliff, everybody says, come set up a program in my hometown. I'm like, copy me. I'm good with that. Have at it. Just don't expect me to try to dilute what we have here, because it's such an amazing central base. Send your people here. I'll train them. You can take the expertise back.
And you need 100 boats.
You do not need 100 boats. I would recommend 12.
I want to ask you about boats. So I joked earlier that sailboats used to be this bathtub with a piece of cloth, on a piece of wood, and now they're more like an airplane. They're calling it a wing. And there's this whole, they're multi-hull hydrofoils now. The America's Cup went back to a monohull hydrofoil.
Yep.
I mean, these
with
boats,
no keel.
They're not even in the water. I mean, they're flying. Explain a little bit about the evolution of sailboat design, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this question, and then I'll probably help you to go where I'm looking. I say that people ask me, what was it like being in the Special Forces? And I say, I think I talked about it here with your group. And I said, there's nothing special about being in the Special Forces, because you have to do the basics and the fundamentals better than everybody else. That's the only difference. Yep. And what teaches you that in sailing is not these multi-hull hydrofoils. It's the Optimist and the Sunfish and the Laser, where you have these core set of skills that teach you about, how do you react to the wind and what does a boat do? So as we've evolved tremendously over the last 15, 20 years,
big time.
How has that changed the sport? And what's happening now as people are coming into the sport and they're seeing this on TV and it's glorified, and these athletes are, they have whoops and heart rate monitors, and we're looking at all their bio data on the screen, but there's still 7-year-old kids out here dragging an Optimist out into the bay and sailing around.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, it's like fighter pilots, and it's become more electronic. It becomes more mental. So while you're seeing the physical side, you need to be able to, I'm not going to say that an Optimist teaches you a lot lot high speed. Not a fast boat.
Well, it depends on your definition. If you're 6 years old, that's fast.
The trim, if I don't trim, I don't go anywhere.
Right.
If I don't sit on the right side, I fall over. The basics, the heel, the trim, the ease. Then you move into the next boat and the next boat. And as you get at some level, you lose the size of boat and the mechanics of the boat that allows you just to feel. But if you started at the high-end boat where there's no feel because you're pushing buttons, you won't be able to sail. You need to have the feel so that you can get into a small boat that's your body weight, that you're heeling, that you're moving. Then you can move into, like a lot of the boats we sail, the far 40s, where you have instruments, but they're tools to help you decipher what it is you're seeing, and then be able to solve problems on your sail shape, which are wings. We've always said that sails are like airplane wings. They just now are literally like airplane wings. So the foil shape, the heel of the boat, the angle of attack to the wind, to the waves, the movements, and then you start to see how the instruments work and how your boat speed works. If you get to most top non-America's Cup level people can sail by just feeling the heel of the boat and looking at the boat speed. That's all you really need. And it drives me crazy. Everybody's like, I've got these H5000, I've got these graphs, and I can see the fish, and I can, I'm like, it's just stop. Just close your eyes, feel the boat, sail the boat, hear the wind, feel the pressure on your side of your face. So if you can do that, then that translates into the big boats and the fast boats. But you need to have all of that built so that you know intellectually what you're trying to do, and then you're taking the other clues which are on your readouts, and it's still physical because you're grinding to give yourself the power, but it's completely different. I don't think that I would be able to get into an America's Cup boat and contribute at this moment. Doesn't mean I couldn't train for it, because it's such a huge leap forward. What we're doing here is we have the foiling camp going on right now. And so we have WASPs and NACRA 17s, and I sailed NACRA 17s and NACRA 20s and WASPs. I do like it, but I like it more for the physical overcoming and the flying and the crashing and the burning. You know, it's like, I'm still at NASCAR. I'm not at Formula One yet.
Oh, when those things go over, I mean, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's so fast too.
Yeah. You're sitting there and then, it's gone.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I race in like 420s and it's like, we're going over. We're still going over. Okay, let me climb off the side and watch it go over.
Generally, I sail boats with keels and they don't fall over. And I still, like, we just sailed OC 86 to Bermuda that was donated by the DeVos family. And I've been friends with them forever. People are like, oh, did you buy that boat? I'm like, no, Doug DeVos donated it. And part of the beauty there is we're sailing with 22 people. So it's keeping the whole team focused and executing a maneuver. And you need everybody on the grinders. You need the grinders going the right way and the right speed. You have 6 different gears on each winch. So it's very technical, but it's not flying.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking, every time we talk about flying, Top Gun is so cool.
Did you see it? I haven't seen it.
Yes, we saw it with Oakcliff, and it was funny because to the left of me were people older than me. To the right of me were all the Oakcliff kids, and they laughed at completely different things.
Oh, really?
Because all the people on the left had already seen the first movie, and I was lucky because I was able to sail. I was able to fly with the Thunderbirds in the backseat, of course.
Oh, really?
And so it felt so much more real to me, and all of the the breathing and the G suits and everything. It was so fun.
I've got to go see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. And Tom Cruise, he's an inspiration to all of us over 50. I want to go back to the gym.
Yeah, he is still in phenomenal shape.
Yeah.
And he still does his own stunts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I have to figure out a way to get him on. You served as the president.
Wait. If you get him on, I'll be your production assistant.
Okay. We'll do it here. You served as the president and a board member of the Women's Sports Foundation. You mentioned Billie Jean King. She founded the organization in 1974 to advance the lives of women in sports. You mentioned a number of them, but some of the most accomplished women in sports have been in this organization. We talked about the 50 years since Title IX. How much further do we have to go? We've come a long way, but how much further do we have to go when we talk about equality?
It's pretty simple. You need to have women in decision-making across the board. And the women's team and SCA, one of the Round the World teams, failed in some significant levels because it was an artificial barrier. The women were on the boat and the men were in the management, and never the twain shall meet, and that just doesn't work. That's like 101. Would you ever advise any of your clients that the board members should never talk to the staff? No, you need to have that. And in the sport of sailing, it's having women in decision-making, boat owners, tacticians, skippers, project leaders, so that when they put together a team, it is completely natural to have women on their team. Never would I ever say we should have all women's teams everywhere, every which way, because we need to be integrated. We know that's strong. Now here comes what happens if we're fully integrated, we're fully diverse. Then what is the solution to win? That's going to be harder. But right now there's an easy answer: more diversity of thought, as you've mentioned, and women in leaderships to promote that diversity.
The water has a healing effect and a healing power. You and Oakcliff have been truly inspirational and also foundational to the Sailhead organization. And we were talking about the Duclay family. Jenny's our production coordinator, and that's how we met, and super close with her entire family, as well as involved in Sailhead. And actually, after I was here last time, I went out and we did a race on the other side and got absolutely smoked. I'm still pissed about it. It was like no wind. It was, it was terrible. It was awful. But it's really important, I think, when we talk about getting people out on the water, because there's this disassociation that can occur between what happens on the water and what happens on land. Mm-hmm. The reason why I was initially drawn to Sail Ahead, the reason why I've stayed involved, the reason why I continue to want to bring veterans out and give them this experience when we talk about mental health is because you can have all these problems on land. I mean, it happened to me today. I was in meetings this morning. I was up at 4 a.m. preparing for this conversation. And then I had all these number of things to do. I was on the phone the entire way down to the ramp. I put the boat in the water and I got on the boat and we got out into the sound and I sat back and just said,
yeah. Yep.
I even turned the radio off. So that I could just listen to the engine.
Yep.
Just the engine and the breeze. Why is that so important? And most importantly, why is that something that whether you're the 5-6-year-old kid in the Optimist or you're the skipper of an America's Cup foiling monohull, it never goes away.
It's even more important now. You need to have a space to clear your brain. And to be able to, sailing and on the water engages all of your senses. And I talk about that all the time. It's the feel, it's the sight, it's the sun, it's the smell of the salt water. It's everything. So it's like you're being immersed in a different world and you need it. And going to Bermuda, I turned my phone off and didn't think about it until we got close. I'm like, oh, I guess I should do something, but I didn't want to. I just kept it hidden for a little while longer because it's amazing how your brain opens up and how much you remember and how many problems you can solve just by, being cleansed. I don't know. just that deep breath.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's truly, I find it in a way foundational, right? Because I feel like you can go back there, right? It's like when you need that time, when you need that moment, you can go out there and like, I'm going to get this if I go out there.
Well, even to the point of looking, like when I am on the computer, I'm scrolling at Facebook, I'll be like, oh, that's New Zealand. Oh, that's Antigua. Like I can there's such a connection with the scenery and the blank palette and the color of the water, and then I can scroll through Facebook and know exactly where the photo, not exactly, but which country, which area the photos are taken, and they're all around water. I can't do that like in a city. I'll be like, oh, I'm from Detroit. I can't tell you if it's, a Ford or a Chrysler. I'm like, it's a car, but out on the water, I can tell you where it is, what cove it is.
I want to ask you about the future. And where we're going. 2020 Olympics yielded no medals for U.S. sailing, and actually no medals for U.S. rowing either, which was also a first. And so two sports that I'm passionate and been involved with for a very long time. But sports that the U.S. has dominated. We lost the America's Cup again. So you were in the boat in '92. America has only won one other time in 2013. Since 1992 in San Francisco. I was there, and that was awesome. You and I talked about that before. But the executive director of US Sailing put out an open letter to all after the 2020 games, and it's a little bit long, but I think it's important to read. It says, many of us in America are dissatisfied by our Olympic sailing trend and want to correct our course. While being in the middle of the pack is not a bad thing, it is just not how Americans think of themselves. Moving up the Olympic pecking order is not going to be easy. No one is going to get out of our way. We need to build a machine that puts teams and athletes in a position where their usual routine will produce a podium result on a regular basis. This is about cultivation, education, preparation, and execution on game day. This is about proper process and procedure, things that you are passionate about and building here, as we talked about with Oakcliff. Accountability and ownership are critical in building high-performing teams, owning results, good, bad, whatever it is. We as leaders have to stand up and own those results. What's next for American sailing as we move into the next Olympic Games a couple of years away. They're already planning. It's all over. America's Cup is even on LinkedIn now, but the planning is well underway for the next America's Cup. How do we get U.S. sailing back on the podium?
That letter then went to committee.
Mm-hmm.
And we know a camel is a horse designed by a committee. And there are still major problems. They have made some good decisions in terms of leadership, but it is across the board being uncreative and not working hard enough. And the America's Cup, the only thing, the last America's Cup that I could see that was wrong was that they were too well organized, but they didn't have that character. They had no discord. And I talked to the team about it, and I was like, this is the only thing that I could see that was wrong. And I wanted to butt in, and I did a little bit, but I know when you're in the zone and when you're working, you don't want some random lady from New York calling you down to New Zealand and saying, yo, what's going on?
Hey, I was watching you. I don't think you're on it.
I should have a little bit more. But you need to have somebody coming in and out. And the Olympic side, Kayard's in there, but he needs an operations person. They don't have an operations person. Alan is the CEO, and he's doing a good job, I think. Andrew, who's amazing, is really the golden child, but he's a one-person show. So there's still a lot that has to happen. And from the Olympic level, the biggest thing, and we're trying to fix it here. We have the boats. We have the facilities. We have the bunkhouse. We have the beach. We have Dingo and Dylan are here as coaching. We have Evgeny in the 470s. We have this amazing training center. But everybody in America, many people in America, especially when they get to that level, have been entitled a little bit. They have been told they're special, and they believe their own Kool-Aid, and they're like, no, I'm going to do my own thing. No, we have to work together as a country and a team. And I can only, as a non-official, I'm not a member of I am, a member, but I'm not the leadership of the NGB. U.S. Sailing has to say, this is the way we're going to train, and you have to do it, or you're not part of the team. And it has to be hard work, and it can't be just paying a lot of money for one special coach. There's no golden egg here. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of that creativity. It's sharing resources. It's sharing your technology. It's supporting each other and being a part of the winning team. And 2 groups have done that, but most specifically the NACRAs. So they were here, they trained here, and then I talked to them about this concept, and I said, what's going to happen if you guys commit to train together is you're going to do better than you thought. And on the day of the trials, the day after the trials, there's going to be one team that's super happy. And there's going to be 4 other teams that are really upset. But that pain will go away much quicker because you were part of that winning team. And I was super happy and proud to see the winning team basically paraphrase that in the press release. Mm-hmm. And it was just so good because it works. Because U.S. Sailing said, NACRAs, you have no chance of going to the Olympics. We're not even going to support you. And they said, oh, yeah? Screw you. Watch me. Mm-hmm. And they worked as a team. So that is what it takes. And it shouldn't have to be screw you. U.S. Sailing should be providing that framework. Oakcliff is trying. But it's frustrating just beating on the doors. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I don't think we're going to do that. That's not true. There's some hope for France. Yeah. The focus right now is on LA.
Yeah. There's a difference between what sometimes you perceive it takes to win and what it actually takes to win. And closing that delta, closing that gap is often the hardest thing.
Right. And what it takes to win is everything.
Everything.
Every single thing has to be done as perfectly as you can. And then the winning, like that second leg for us in the Whitbread was like, oh my God, we're on the podium. Wow, look at that. That was easy. But it wasn't easy. The end seemed easy because we'd done all the hard work at every single step along the way.
Yeah. It's asking the question at the end of the day, what more can I do?
Yeah. Yep.
Not saying what did I do?
Yeah, no. What else? And then at some point at 10:30 at night, like I was here last night going, I can't do this. I will do this in the morning. Go to sleep.
Yeah. No, I wear it on this band on my wrist, whatever it takes.
There you go.
Whatever it takes. Because that's the difference between what it actually takes to win versus what you hope or think or want it to
You know what? We're actually lucky to be able to have that single focus. You know, when you're in the zone and when you know that you have to change this bulb on the bottom of an AC boat to get to the race course the next morning, and you know you're not going to sleep for 24 hours, but you know you can do it. It's awesome, and it's lucky. We're lucky.
Yeah.
We're lucky.
Yeah. As we close out, the Jedburghs had three core foundational tasks. You could call them habits if you wanted. They had to do them as the foundation of everything that they set out to do in their day. They had to be able to shoot, they had to be able to move, and they had to be able to communicate. If they did these three things with the utmost precision as their foundational tasks, then their energy, their focus could actually be focused on other things, more complex tasks that came their way. What are the three things that you do every day in your world to be successful?
I always wake up and think about what I can get done today. I try to work out every day. And I'm lucky because I look at the water every day if I'm not in it.
Love it. Wake up, think about what you have to get done, make that list, work out, and look at the water or get in it if you can.
Yep.
I like those.
Pretty simple.
The 9 characteristics of elite performance as defined by Special Operations Forces. We reference a number of them here, but they're a core tenet of this podcast: drive, resiliency, adaptability, humility, integrity, curiosity, team ability, effective intelligence, and emotional strength. Elite performers, regardless of what you do, business, athletics, military, doesn't matter, they exhibit all 9 of these. And you exhibit them in different variations at different scales, never really all 9 at once, but depending on what you're involved in. You have spoken at length about all of these through our conversation here. I mean, even, true resiliency, we didn't get into it. You were involved in a near death car crash in your house in 2019 and have exhibited tremendous resiliency on the back end of that because you couldn't speak, right?
Correct. For about 3 months.
And how did you come back from that?
It was so bizarre. I mean, I in my head, I was like, I know exactly what I was going to say. And God, was I frustrated. But it took being perseverance to go to the doctors and find out that I was having seizures from the TBI. And once the meds and then speech therapy. And now I'm almost good. I'm the only one that notices. And I'm in my head, I'm like, sorry. Somebody actually said, a friend of mine who I wanted to punch in the face, she goes, well, maybe it's good because I always have trouble keeping up with you. I'm like, no, it's not good.
Well, I haven't noticed at all, and we've been talking here for a long time. But true. I mean, resiliency and adaptability and the ability to come back. At the end of these conversations, I think about these 9. And in our conversation, and I pick one, and I say this is the one that through getting to know you, I truly believe exemplify it. And I think for you, it really is this concept of effective intelligence. You have had this litany of experiences that you are now using to develop that next generation. You are unrelenting. In the military, we call it this relentless pursuit, right? And it's this relentless pursuit of the mission success. And that may morph over time, but whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to take that experience of the past, and maybe it's not the same as what you're facing right now, but you're going to figure out how you took something from that and you're going to make it apply. And that is what makes great leaders. That's what makes great organizations. That's what makes America great.
America, yes.
I'm so motivated and inspired by your dedication to the sport, by your dedication to women, not only in this sport, but in every sport and in every leadership position. I truly wish you the best of success here at Oakcliff, in sailing, whatever comes next for you in sailing, if you enter into politics, because I know that you will take this effective intelligence, you will take the other 8 characteristics here, you will apply them, you'll go all in, and you will have this relentless pursuit to be successful. And we're all supporting you.
Thank you.
So
thank you very much.
American Jedburghs went out to form the foundation of the United States Special Forces and the Special Activities Directorate of the Central Intelligence Agency. Thanks for listening to the Jedburgh Podcast. I'm your creator and host, Fran Racioppi. Join us next week for a new episode on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube for full episodes, highlights, and other behind-the-scenes content. If you like what you heard, give us a like and leave a review. Follow me, Fran Racioppi, Talent War Group, and our sponsor Jersey Mike Subs on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Send your comments and inquiries to media@talentwargroup.com. As former members of Special Operations Forces, the Jedburgh Podcast and Talent War Group contribute a percentage of all profits to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, supporting the families of our fallen warriors. Thanks for joining us on this episode. How you prepare today determines success tomorrow.